Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. I'm here to talk again about Starfield. Last time we talked about Starfield, just a little bit over a week ago, we got a teensy tiny update on the game. And within that teensy tiny update, it spiderwebbed a bit thanks to some recent Xbox rumors. But now we have an update on this rumor, and we have a pretty good idea of what is going to be happening with Starfield, when the next expansion is coming, when the PS5 port is on the way. And as I always say, the reason we're tracking this is on top of being very interested in what Bethesda is actually doing here with this expansion, it's also about how it collides into Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout. But on top of that, the main reason I wanted to cover this is I made a lot of predictions in that last Starfield update, and I might be kind of right in some areas, but also kind of wrong. So I thought just updated thoughts on what's happening here, I kept getting tagged in this news, would be worth covering here today. So if you're new here and you're into what's going on with Bethesda Game Studios, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. So today's rumor, the source is MP First, who's kind of put themselves on the map as of late. However, a lot of their rumors have originally come from, hey, job listings. They kind of scrape through LinkedIn, they'd find a little something, they'd report it. They did this with Oblivion Remastered, they did this with Assassin's Creed Black Flag Remake. They did it with these types of games, and so it was legitimate, but it also wasn't inside sources or scoops of some kind. In this case, though, this is we heard from someone. So that is a bit of a twist on the usual sourcing from MP First, so we can move forward, grain of salt. But the report writes, Starfield PS5 release planned for 2026 alongside Expansion 2. So that already throws a monkey wrench into my Todd Howard interview. Todd, it's aging like milk. You got to come back on the channel, brother. Come on now. Okay, so he said annual expansions. That's clearly not happening here, but I think for good reason, as we'll read here. According to our sources, MP First was told that Starfield won't be released in 2025, partly due to the RPG's weak sales of the first expansion, Shattered Space. Instead, Microsoft is leaning toward releasing the Starfield PS5 version in spring 2026. For those not in the US, spring starts middle of March and runs until mid-June. From what we were told, Starfield's release on PS5 is planned to coincide with the game's second expansion and other quality of life updates. We are not expecting any announcement about the PS5 version of the game at this August Gamescom, so don't expect it to be shadow dropped like Bethesda's Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster release a few weeks ago, which is something we reported accurately on for anyone keeping score. Love the chest out energy, but to our topic today. Okay, staying in a little bit of speculation mode, but where I may be heading toward being right is that whenever we see Starfield on PS5, the support gets cut. And learning here that the sales for Shattered Space were bad, I'm not trying to champion yeah, I want you to fail, but failure deserved. I hope they learned a very valuable lesson with that expansion. It's just unacceptable quality. So I'm glad that in all of this, it looks like they're buckling down, taking their time, and making something worthwhile. With that in mind, because they're taking a longer time, and now we're starting to hear rumors percolate that it is in response to those poor sales, and clearly they need to spend a little more time with this, I do think expectations should rise. This is something I talked about last video. I said, when Bethesda's silent, I've been guilty in the past of raising my expectations. Oh, they're cooking. Fallout 4 Next Gen update happens. I start to realize, oh, just sometimes it's a complete mess. This has also been the case for other bits of silence across Bethesda. In this case, however, they are breaking a promise that they made last year, instead spending more time and resources on getting this right. That's great, but now I'm just really hoping this is like a Phantom Liberty moment for the game. I'm not expecting that because there's no reason to expect it yet, but that is what it should be, especially if you're synchronizing it with the launch on PS5. Then that gets into the other thing I might be kind of right about, and then we'll talk about what I'm obviously wrong about, which is simply that I think this second expansion is it for Starfield. When you are trying to coincide that release of Starfield on PS5 with that second expansion so much that you're willing to delay it, I feel like moving it out of 2025 into 26, there has to be that conversation internally of is anyone going to care at that point? Starfield did great numbers in 2023. There was a lot of hype behind the game, a lot of curiosity behind the game, and a lot of people walked away soured from it. Word of mouth for this game, between its expansion and its post-launch support, has been terrible. It's not like the game has carried incredible sales or incredible player counts, unfortunately. So when you go to PS5, you need to make it count, which is why this needs to be a Phantom Liberty moment, but it also kind of needs to be the final version, the complete edition. I just don't see a world where Bethesda continues to commit resources to Starfield when Elder Scrolls 6 is on the horizon. We just heard Fallout 5 got greenlit. We don't know Bethesda's real involvement in that. They're getting pulled in a million directions. And when you have Microsoft owning you, we see how they care about making their money. You don't got time for Starfield and weak expansion sales. You just finish the job here, put a complete edition out on PS5, spring 2026, and I'll be really interested to see what exactly that looks like. And I'll also be very interested to see what the sales are. But yeah, I don't think Starfield is going to go for many years like many of us thought it might. And that may ultimately be for the better. As I've talked about in the past, as much as I want Starfield to be great and for people to love it, the reality is that it does pull resources away from Bethesda to focus on the things that we fell in love with them for. Elder Scrolls, Fallout. Bethesda also happens to be one of the worst when it comes to waits between releases. And especially when Elder Scrolls and Fallout fans were kind of warring with each other, just each side was waiting longer and longer, and now game development's taking longer. You throw Starfield in the mix, 76 in the mix. It's been a while since any fan of Elder Scrolls or Fallout got something like proper for them, barring the Oblivion remaster. So yeah, as much as I want Starfield to thrive, and maybe the second expansion is the turnaround, it turns the game into what it should have been, it really ignites people's love of it, or people start to go, okay, not bad, cool. Like, it can just maybe redeem itself a little bit even. I don't know if that changes anything. I think because we're full steam ahead on Elder Scrolls 6, this has to be the cutoff line, especially if Shattered Space sales were really weak. And I mean, again, for the price tag and the quality, just compared to the competition, Phantom Liberty was the same price as Shattered Space. And remember, a lot of the changes with Phantom Liberty were added to the game for free. So think about that for a little bit.
Now, I do want to give you all something to chew on a little bit here beyond the delay rumors, and it's this recent finding by the Starfield Reddit of some sort of interplanetary travel. You'll see here within some of the code for Starfield, as analyzed by XTC Refugee, is mentions of an on-ship cruise arrival and departure. And so it's anybody's guess what this can be, but it looks like in some sort of future update, Bethesda is targeting some sort of space travel update. What that ends up being, if it's up to our wildest dreams or not, is totally up in the air. There is a mod that a lot of this Reddit thread was pointing out called Astrogate, which does address a lot of the problems Starfield has. So a lot of people look at that mod and go, okay, there's a way for us to travel around space without all the loading screens and keeping it seamless. So maybe Bethesda, as they've done before, has seen a fan mod and have leaned into it with their own technology, and they'll give us the official version of it. We'll see. They're targeting it. Ultimately, we shall see. But this game is not in a great spot, and I hope they can turn it around. But it seems like, in what I was incorrect about, is what is written here, is that Starfield's PS5 release is not expected to be shown at August Gamescom. This is a bit of a surprise to me. I thought for sure with what we talked about involving the game business and how on that episode with Christopher Dring and Matt Piscatella, there is a write-up that says Xbox is expected to announce more game ports to other platforms, including Nintendo Switch 2 and PS5 in the coming weeks. It felt so obvious Starfield would be one of those. Todd promised annual expansions. We're getting close to the end of the year. We're getting close to Starfield's 2-year anniversary. This is a great time to show the game, what updates have been packed into the game, what the second expansion is, when it's coming to PS5. You also have that moment on Gamescom Opening Night Live 2024 where Jeff Keighley announced the release window of Indiana Jones on PS5. So there's all the history there. There's all the reason to believe this would be a good spot for it to be announced. The timing was just right. When Starfield didn't show up at Xbox's Summer Showcase, again, it was like, okay, kick it down the road a little bit. They're taking as much time as they can. They're not ready to show much. But now we're getting to the point where if we're looking at spring 2026 and they show nothing at Gamescom, I don't know when a good time to show it would be. I think it'll just randomly be shown on Bethesda's channels whenever they're ready. And that'll be interesting to see how that's handled, how that's received. But this means that whatever happens next for Starfield, by the time we do get it, Shattered Space came out September 30th of last year. So if we're coming out in spring of 2026, over a year has been spent on making Starfield's next DLC and its updates. I think there's reason again to believe that this should be somewhat substantial. We'll see just how substantial, but it should be a big swing at the least. And that's what I was really hoping for. And I'm glad they're taking the time. If it ends up being disappointing, it'll sting. But the silver lining is that they're going to move on to things like Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5, things that I think they're much better at making and things that I care a lot more about, if I'm really honest about it. They also wrote here, similar to any release and marketing plan, there are numerous moving parts and things are constantly changing. However, based on the information we currently have, we do not expect Starfield to be released this year. So yeah, no Starfield this year, no expansion this year. As for predictions of when this might happen, your guess is sincerely as good as mine. Starfield's in a weakened position. I don't see it showing up at like the Game Awards at the end of this year. It just doesn't feel like a spot where Starfield's big enough to be there. I feel like one of Xbox's own platforms would be a good spot. I felt like that's where August and Opening Night Live was a great fit with Gamescom, because usually that showcase is updates on things we already know about and very little brand new announcements. So again, it just all added up for Starfield to be here. So I do think it's just going to happen on Xbox and Bethesda's own channels, because we've seen what's happened when you get the announcement of a big Xbox game going over to PlayStation, right? Like Gears of War Reloaded. I mean, Gears, like a core Xbox franchise, going over to PlayStation. That's a big announcement. It was done through a tweet on PlayStation's channels. And if you're Microsoft and you care about making money, it's not always about like where Xbox is going to be, but sometimes letting PlayStation make that move alongside Bethesda. PlayStation making the first move does create the most noise. It does create the most attention grabbing, because it's like, whoa, Starfield and PlayStation, which we've expected for a while. We've known has been in the works for a while. But keep in mind the other aspect, which is the rumor Tom Warren shared, which was that the PS5 port was apparently done last year. It was supposed to launch alongside Shattered Space, but Bethesda held on to it. So again, that's reason to believe, if we're going to lean into some rumors out there, that Starfield's port is done. So a lot of this work has been spent on just the expansion and the updates. So what exactly it's going to target, what exactly it's going to be, how successful it is, we'll just wait and see. Because I'm certainly not creating wild expectations like they've solved all of the loading screen issues in the game. If they did that, that'd be fantastic. Or, oh my God, there's actually like the ability to wander, or they filled all these planets with content, whatever it may be. I don't know. But I think the best thing Starfield could do, if they wanted this game to sell really well after all of the negative word of mouth, not just about Starfield, but Bethesda. Like a lot of people felt Starfield was a validating moment for them and their critiques of Bethesda, and you really can't argue it. Even as someone who likes the game, I'm like, yeah, it's deeply troubled. It's deeply problematic. There's a lot of issues with it. And so a lot of people who did not like Bethesda felt vindicated. So this is a very important redemption arc for them. And I think the reason you want to get Expansion 2 right is for the confidence of Starfield Shattered Space. I mean, I was right there for it. Fallout 4 came out. Everyone gave up on Bethesda. Didn't agree with that, because I thought Fallout 4 was great. Just wasn't the role-playing game I wanted. A lot of people at the time, though, were blaming Creation Engine. Like, Bethesda can't make a good RPG because of Creation Engine. I'm like, whatever that means. Because then Far Harbor comes around, and it's fantastic. It is the role-playing game that we wanted from Fallout 4, but it did instill that confidence that if Bethesda puts their minds to it, they can make a really great role-playing experience. They kind of just choose not to. And so after that, it gave us this glimpse of hope and also trust, like, okay, they do get it and they can execute on this. So whatever they do next, it ended up being Fallout 76, could be great. But that's the cycle of Bethesda I've been through so many times now, right? Like, we were not believing in Bethesda during 76, rightfully so. Tragic launch. Wastelanders comes out. They start to listen more. They start to adjust. They start to add things that we thought were impossible for Fallout 76. And now look at the state the game is in. Some people will just register all of this as me trying to make you believe. Like, I need you to be positive about these things. That's not the case at all. What I'm just trying to say is that Bethesda knows bad games. They do. And they know when they've got something kind of stinky, and they also know to hang with it. And I think they've done these redemption projects enough. I would just like to see their next game not be one of these. I would like to see them come out the gates and be like, yes, great. Not a Fallout 4, not a 76, not a Starfield, where they have these consistent like misdirections, misfires, or just miscommunications that shift fan expectations one way or the other. I'd love to see them have a bona fide victory. So I'm hoping that Starfield does the same thing Bethesda's done with multiple releases now. It's a strong response to the game's biggest flaws. It makes people feel good about it leading into Elder Scrolls 6, because that's what's, I think, if you're Bethesda, the most important part of this all. Elder Scrolls 6 won't struggle because of Starfield, but no doubt getting people to buy in. Again, I always say the hardcore gamers are like the gatekeepers. We'll lift you up to everyone else, but you got to get through us first. So if Bethesda can deliver with Starfield Expansion 2 and kind of round out the game with some great quality of life updates, maybe that'll be a reason for people to go, okay, I'm interested in Elder Scrolls 6. We'll see what happens, though. Ladies and gentlemen, these are my thoughts on the recent Starfield rumors. Looks like we shouldn't expect anything at Gamescom. Bit of a bummer there,
But nonetheless, that is what it is. I just hope whatever expansion 2 ends up being, it's great. Let me know your thoughts down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.